Hello, Kuman229 here with another Topic of the Week video. This week I'll be discussing serial escalation in anime and manga. This week's topic was submitted by firedragonalchemistofcourage, and their topic is, I'd like to hear your take on serial escalation in anime and manga. Maybe some examples of series that make it work and series that don't. Okay, now a lot of people might be wondering what exactly is serial escalation, and put it simply, it's when an ongoing series has to keep upping the ante to the point of, well, borderline absurdity. Now, some can handle it better than others, and some really make it painful. But basically, every time something happens, it needs to be bigger and better than before. You know, you have, let's just take a show. You have seasons. You have season 1, things start off, fairly small. Season 2, they get bigger. Season 4, they get bigger. Season 5, they get bigger. Season 6, they get bigger. Season 7, they get bigger. And all of a sudden, it's just all of a sudden, you end up going from a small little conflict to an intergalactic war, and, it can get ridiculous. Now, I'm using some pretty hyperbolic examples here when I talk about that, but series escalation can be done well. Now, specifically looking at anime and manga, I'd like to point to Dragon Ball in a way that handled it well, and even going up through to Super. You start off Dragon Ball as Goku is this little monkey boy in the forest, and he fights some bad guys. They fight Emperor Pilaf, who's just a gag villain. And he goes into a tournament. He does training with Roshi, yada yada yada. First real big threat is the Red Ribbon Army, where you actually have these generals and colonels and stuff who actually pose a threat. And, they're actually dangerous. They're a military force. And, they're willing to kill people to get the Dragon Balls. So, that's boosted up, and then next time you get, and ignoring just the tournament rivals like Tien, but you move up to King Piccolo, who manages to kill one of the main cast members, Krillin, Goku's best friend. Oh crap! That just took this to an entirely different level. And then then Goku gets his butt handed to him by Tambourine, who's just one of the children or / minions of King Piccolo. And when he finally, gets to King Piccolo, he gets his butt handed to him. Man, it's like this guy is so powerful, he ends up taking over the world. Holy crap, now we have a villain who actually succeeded in taking over the world. And then Goku ends up beating him after a giant epic fight. And then you get to the Piccolo Jr. stuff, where, Piccolo is his reincarnation / son / actually himself. It's really kind of a bit of a mess, but he's the child of King Piccolo. He's out for revenge, and then, then there's it's the biggest fight in Dragon Ball, where everything around them gets totally obliterated, and, Goku barely manages to make it out with his life. And then you get to Dragon Ball Z, where aliens show up. And then you have the Saiyans come in, and they just wreck everyone. Then you get the Namek. Then you have Frieza and the Ginyu Force. And you have this genocidal alien tyrant who can literally destroy planets with a swick of his finger. Then you get to the androids, and they're all stronger than Frieza. And then you get to Cell, who's stronger than them. And then you get to Majin Buu in the Buu Saga. And that's only after you get to all the other guys who are stronger than before. Like, oh my gosh, the series gets crazy. And then we get to the whole Gods of Destruction in Super, and the 12 universes, and the people who are even radically stronger than Goku in all these other universes. And yeah. Whew. Series escalation is crazy, but Dragon Ball generally handles it well, and it's kind of a shock that Toriyama, when he was doing Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z and drawing the manga, and he managed to handle it so well, considering he had really no serious concrete plans going through things, that he was constantly changing things up and just making it up as he went along. And one of the biggest problems with serial escalation that a lot of writers have is that they don't really handle it with delicacy. When you have serial escalation, there's always got to be something bigger and badder. You have bad guys who are stronger than the heroes. The good guys beat the the bad guys. But then you need another bad guy that's even stronger, so our heroes can't just beat them. So then they fight and then they win. And then a bigger one comes in and then they fight and then they win. And that's basically how things go. So when you get to a point where you have our heroes are radically strong, like just incredibly powerful, and then you don't know what to do, so you just keep making the villains stronger and stronger and stronger, and you try to make the spectacle bigger and bigger and bigger, and it just ends up... It can end up being a mess really fast, and you don't really need to look at much farther than Naruto. That's definitely a bad example. From a series that started off actually portraying, importance of tactics and, intelligent use of jutsu, of like, there's the whole shuriken transformation thing with that Naruto and Sasuke did, into other, times when you saw, strategy being used in the fights, and when someone pulled out jutsu, it's a big deal, and it's like, and they're using it for a specific purpose. Then you end up, and the longer it goes, you end up with just jutsu battles. Literally, everyone's just going for 20 times every single time, and they're pulling out gigantic monsters, summoning huge animals, and then you have, Sasuke like, here's my giant flying purple skeleton knight stand, and it's like, what is going on? I remember a friend had showed me the battle between Sasuke and Danzo, and oh my gosh, I watched that in the anime, and that was so boring. It was one of the most boring, big epic fights I've ever seen, because it was literally just, my jutsu's bigger. No, my jutsu's bigger. Oh, my jutsu's bigger. And then the intelligent parts of it were basically, well, those are pretty much, shot to hell when Sasuke's like, ha, I figured everything out long ago, and it's like, robbing Karen from actually being useful in that fight by Sasuke going, I already knew that. Come on, Kishi. But, and that's really the point. You have interesting fights with interesting dynamics, with characters having to figure out weaknesses and exploiting openings and weaknesses to try to, using anything from, their skills to, weapons, to actual, jutsu, but then you end up with these big jutsu battles, and then by the time you get to all this bullcrap with Boruto, you have Naruto flashing yellow, and he's fighting another neon-colored guy on the moon, and he has a million clones going Rasengan, and it's just all these huge explosions, and like they're fighting on the moon. That's not interesting. It really is not. And this is one of the big problems with serial escalation, is when they completely lose control. The escalation has to be meaningful. That's really an important point. The escalation has to be meaningful. You can't just have bad guys constantly pulling out bigger battles, bigger weapons. I mean, sure, if you can make it interesting, yeah, make it meaningful. But if all you're doing is making things bigger and flashier without anything else, just stop. And I understand how this can be really difficult, especially for mangaka who have series that go 10, 15, 20 years, and they're constantly having to one-up themselves, and I think a controlled approach is very, very much needed. Now, I know this isn't anime and manga, but I do want to pull reference to Legend of Korra, because, of course, Legend of Korra did this wrong. There is a big problem that a lot of people notice, and I noticed this before, is, in not volume 1, I was thinking about Ruby. In book 1, you have Korra going up against a political ideologue. He basically knows... His kung fu is strong, and he knows how to debend people, basically making him a severe threat, that if he gets his hands on you, boom, your bending's gone. And, and then he can, with his whole army of chi blockers, he's, nigh unstoppable. Which, okay, that's an interesting idea. A little more small scale than Ozai, but fine. Then you get to book 2, and it's like, Here we have the Dark Avatar, who literally grows to a giant, skyscraper size. Then Korra turns into her own Korrazella by accessing her inner power. It's literally nothing. There's no explanation of what happens, but Korra meditates and then boom, turns into a giant skyscraper-sized blue Korra, and they're fighting in the bay of Republic City, and there's just like this big battle, and it rips the Avatar spirit out of her and just like starts beating, and it's just like, well, apart from it being dumb, this is like massive world-ending epic kaiju fight. Then you get to book 3 and it's like, oh yeah, by the way, we have these this group of terrorists, and they don't like the Avatar. They have some crazy, weird, unexplainable powers. Yeah, and they want to cause chaos. A little, what's the word? It's a little disappointing after the world-ending battles, and it's like, guys, this is what you have after Amon. I mean, regardless of the bad writing, but if you're taking the core concepts of this, you have the giant world-ending threat at the end. That's the reason why the whole giant, epic Ozai versus Aang fight was at the end of, it was the finale, and not in book 1 or book 2. I mean, you talk about serial escalation in Avatar: The Last Airbender. Okay, I know this is supposed to be about anime and manga, and I guess you could probably consider Avatar and Korra to be pretty much American anime. But I think it's an important point to make, because, talking about serial escalation, and because Avatar: The Last Airbender did it right. You had, the big climax of book 1 was Aang turns uncontrolled, mind you, basically merges with the spirit of the sea. Yeah, because the moon spirit is the one that Zhao killed. And they ended up wrecking the fleet, so that they didn't get into the Northern Water Tribe. Well, they got into the Northern Water Tribe, but, stopped them from, like, completely taking it over. Then in book 2, you have, you have a big climax where they defend, Ba Sing Se from being completely invaded, this impenetrable city that stood 100 years of war, and no one can get through it, get through their walls. And then you have, everything goes to crap at the end, where Aang is killed, and after he tries to access the Avatar state, everyone loses. Zuko betrays everyone. Iroh is captured. Everyone's on the run. And then Toph is taken, and everything goes to crap in the book 2 finale, which is a lot more intense than them having a pretty decisive victory in defeating Zhao, who's the main villain of book 2. They lose in book 1, but they lose in book 2, and then in book 3 you have it all building up. Well, it builds up to the day of the invasion of the Black Sun, which then goes when they find out that everything was that they basically walked into an empty house, and they totally blew their plans. And then you build up to the big finale where everything is desperate, it's on the line, Aang has to fight Ozai, and you have this giant epic battle, and then you have Zuko and Azula with their final conflict with shooting giant fireballs at each other. And that's serial escalation. Korra didn't do this right, and I know I always end up bringing in Legend of Korra as an example of how things are bad, but when the series does everything so wrong, it makes it easy to use it as a bad example. Going back to Korra with the serial escalation, then after you have after you have the terrorists with the Red Lotus, then you have Kavira, who comes in and wants to, is a understandable, military leader who's portrayed as nothing but an evil, monstrous tyrant, because all conflicts must be black and white. And then, she brings up a giant mech, which that was so stupid. That was so stupid. But, anyway, I mean, it's like, do you not understand what serial escalation is? In terms of scale, all of this pales in comparison to, it really pales in comparison to, the giant, Korrazilla fight. It's like, you had the world-ending Dark Avatar, and it's like, you should have had him at the end of book 4, not Kavira, but But you know, none of Korra was ever planned properly. Now, if there's a series that I would say that kind of went wonky with the serial escalation, I would have to say Yu Yu Hakusho, and I might get flack for this, but Yu Yu Hakusho had some pretty big problems. You know, you have younger Toguro, and Toguro is more or less the main, not just the focus, but he's the main rival for Yusuke. And you know, you build up him throughout, you know, that whole first arc going into the Demon Tournament arc. And then, you know, he ends up beating, like, they eventually end up winning. Then you get to, the whole Chapter Black saga. And then the villain in that, Sensui, I think it was Sensui. I tried to block that entire saga out of my mind, but, you know, then you have this evil spirit detective who's a match for Yusuke, and then he's just, like, overpowered, and then after that, it's like, oh, now we're fighting demons in the whole demon tournament, or the saga of the Three Kings, or I don't remember what it's called. I've heard it called numerous things. And you have a lot of, and then you kind of, you know, pick up back after that, and you have this power scaling again. And it's just a little wonky, you know, because you have the build-up with Toguro, and then you kind of have Sensui. It's just like, and then you get to the Three Kings. It's like, oh, okay, now we're fighting with, like, serious demons here. I was like, alright. I mean, there's definitely things it could have done better, but, you know, in terms of the fights, it's like, alright, you know, you have these big epic fights now. So that's good, you know. If only it didn't end so anticlimactically. But that's a topic for another discussion. That's not talking about the, you know, the serial escalation. I guess I could also point to Bleach as a pretty bad example. I'm currently reading Bleach. I'm in the middle of the Soul Society arc right now. But I mean, I know all that happens. I know what happens afterwards. But one of the problems that it had was escalation. I think you can really, I could just focus on one character with that, and you could just point to Aizen. And when you're and I think one of the biggest problems is that Kubo didn't really know how to make him seem like an epic villain, so he just kept making him more and more powerful, and dragged the fight on and on and on and on and on and on, and you know, and then that's one of the biggest problems that Kubo had with the fights, is that all the fights would drag on and on and on and on and on and on. It would take months, like sometimes 9 months to a year and a half, just for one fight. I mean, I've heard that one fight took like 80 chapters. That's like a year and a half. And it's like, no, you can't make a fight interesting for that long. And how do these fights keep going on? Everyone keeps pulling out crazier and crazier powers, and that's when the serial escalation really starts poisoning it. Because then everyone has to get more and more powerful, everyone has to get crazier and crazier powers, and you end up with like the Stern Ritter in the final arc, and they're just like totally overpowered, except when they're not. And then you have Yahweh. No, not Yahweh, that's blasphemous. Yawak. I'm calling him Yawak because I don't care how you pronounce it. Because he's a stupid villain. And he's overpowered, except when they come up with the Deus Ex Machina to mute his powers. But that's what, you know, and that's another problem that comes with improper serial escalation. And you get to the point where you end up like creating a villain that's so powerful, the only way to beat them is with the Deus Ex Machina. And a Deus Ex Machina is one of the cardinal sins of writing. And, you know, just having something come out of nowhere that solves the problem, and it just instantly, basically, just boom, alright, problem's gone. Oh. And then you end up with, after all that build up with this powerful opponent of how will they beat him, well, the writer will just make him win. And that's really something that really sucks when you're getting so invested in a series and it hits bad serial escalation to the point where the only way that they could win is some total nonsense that comes out of nowhere just to stop the bad guys. It's bad. It's really bad. I mean, you know, and it's funny because with looking at Dragon Ball Z, and I mentioned that Dragon Ball Z handled a lot of proper serial escalation. The way they ended up defeating Kid Buu, the most powerful enemy they had faced up to that point, and who was pretty much nigh unstoppable, was using the Spirit Bomb, which was introduced all the way back, when we got King Kai. And, the Spirit Bomb had never really defeated anyone. I think the most significant use was with Frieza, and Frieza didn't die from that. He still ends up coming back, and it's Trunks who officially kills him. And they never really managed to successfully use the Spirit Bomb until the end of the Buu Saga, when they get all the people of Earth, and even, people in the universe, in another world, get the Spirit Bomb, just like, Goku's just like, on Buu. And, that felt earned. When they beat Buu, that felt earned, despite how, honestly, ridiculously overpowered Buu was. It felt like it was worth it. That when they finally beat him, you're like, yeah! And ultimately, the goal should be a satisfying experience. You have... Things get bigger and crazier, but you don't lose focus on what's going on. You don't lose focus on actually writing something good. Because when you lose focus on what's going on, you end up with Kubo and dragging fights out for so long it becomes a meme. Or you have people bored to tears who would rather skip Bleach for weeks on end, or months on end, and then go, oh, I'll just binge read the last 20 chapters because probably nothing happened. Which, at one point they weren't really wrong. But, that's the problem, is that there's a reason why Dragon Ball is so beloved even to this day. And, it's in the proper serial escalation is really one of the good things about it. And despite my issues that I have with Yu Yu Hakusho, and ultimately it managed to more or less do that right, even if it faltered at points and ended anticlimactically. Overall, there's a reason why people remember Yu Yu Hakusho fondly. Because if all the fights at the end during the whole Demon Tournament were just totally like Kubo or Kishimoto level incompetent, then no one would. It wouldn't be as beloved as it is. But and that's one of the reasons why Naruto and Bleach failed. Improper serial escalation, and frankly, that was due to incompetence and laziness from their authors. And I think really that's about it to talk about when it comes to serial escalation. I talked about some anime and manga and Avatar, because I somehow always end up talking about Avatar and Korra. They make it too easy, though. But anyway, I think that's about it for this topic. If you want to submit a topic to me, if you're on YouTube, you can simply comment below. And if you're on Tumblr, send me an ask and do topic : and whatever topic you want me to talk about. Or if it's exceptionally long, you can send it as a submit. Just make sure that you're following the rules that I'll be posting down below on both Tumblr and YouTube. And it's something I've been learning. The YouTube notifications kind of fail, so if you want to, keep up with the videos that I'm posting, make sure to click the bell icon. And I can't believe that this actually has to be said because YouTube messes us up. But yes, if you're subscribed, you can click the bell icon to make sure you're getting notifications for my videos. So if you want to watch last week's topic video, you can check that out here. If you want to watch next week's topic video, you can check that out here when I get that done. And thank you for watching.